and the possibility of surgery loomed upon us. A peritoneal catheter was placed in Evan's abdomen at only day 4, and it prepared him for what might have been days, months, years of dialysis from the very beginning. My answer was no. I wasn't ready to give up on Evan, but I did question if I was giving up on myself as a mother. With the final months of pregnancy that we had preparing ourselves, we hoped for the best, but we planned for the worst. I feared for my son, and I feared for my daughter, being only 3 at the time, and knowing that she would be exposed to a roller coaster of having a sibling with special needs, let alone the toll that it would take on my marriage and my faith. These days were my weakest, but ironically they were Evan's strongest. He fought so hard to sustain the little kidney function that he had had. I realize now that I was naive. It wasn't anything that we could do, but being together was the best thing, and being where we were what was truly meant to make the difference. The quality of Evan's life wasn't going to be measured by a machine to keep him alive. It was going to be measured by us. I sing the praises of Tampa General and the community and give credit to the nurses and the doctors who not only cared for Evan, but they cared for our family. We established a team of primary nurses in the NICU to care for Evan those first few weeks of life. And perhaps I'm a little biased, but I'm pretty sure that they fell in love with him the moment that I did. This was our new home. It was our new normal, as my husband often would say. Days where he and Avery would take a nap in the lawn of the rose garden outside of the chapel, or we would have a picnic with our grandparents who were here to visit in the NICU. And after 4 short weeks, Evan was actually discharged, being sent home with a feeding tube due to failure to thrive, and loaded up with his tubes and gear. Despite minor surgeries, Evan thrived that first year of life, and support from our friends and family proved to us that love cures. Both of our kids grew accustomed to trips to the hospital. While living only 15 minutes away, it wasn't abnormal to drive by and just wave to someone that we knew might be inside. A hospital is the last place that a child would think of to make friends. But I found that every time we walk those halls of Tampa General, even today, we're recognized and greeted by a familiar face. The valet attendants, the admission clerks, the child life volunteers, they all know his sweet smile, even behind his mask. We saw doctors more than family some weeks, and we celebrated those big milestones by visiting our favorite nurses in the NICU. Evan's battle unfortunately took a turn for the worse after Christmas of 2012, and at 18 months old, he began hemodialysis. With a long road ahead, we promised each other and our family that kidney disease would never prevail. Although there were never signs of his kidneys failing, we had seen a decline in labs and knew what lied ahead. And 3 times a week, Evan came to Tampa General for dialysis. He sat in a crib for 4 hours while a machine had filtered his blood and removed toxins. 4 hours. That's longer than the time that we've spent here this evening together. We were told that dialysis would be a bridge to transplant, and while transplant would never be a cure, that it was a goal of ours to get Evan big enough to receive a kidney. Treatment itself was tolerable, and Evan was a true champion, but the regimen alone for my husband, who worked hard, and my responsibility for our daughter to get her to school in the mornings literally split our family in half. At a time where we needed each other the most, we found ourselves shuffling schedules and juggling parenting responsibilities. You would never know by looking at Evan now, or most kidney kids for that matter, that anything is truly wrong. I hate to illustrate a negative image of dialysis. It is truly what kept him alive during that stage. And yet again, we found ourselves surrounded by nurses and doctors through USF and Tampa General who continue to love Evan, care for him, and support our family through our weakest time. Our prior thoughts of dialysis were perhaps our biggest misconception. And although the days were long, this was a chapter of his life that had lifted weights from our shoulders as parents, while a machine literally compensated for what his body could not do. Some of our kidney friends will be on dialysis on and off throughout their entire childhood. They might have complications that arise, and Evan's time for transplant might have been right within our grasp, but I was too wise to know that someday we might be back here again. Only 3 months had gone by, and we were given the okay to search for a kidney. Meanwhile, some of our friends and new ones along the way cheered us on from those dialysis chairs.
Daddy, there's more pages.
And let's face it, I didn't sign up for this. It's a roller coaster, having a child with a chronic illness, but I did sign up to be an organ donor. After meeting with the transplant team, Evan was cleared for surgery. Perhaps it was surgery 12 or number 13, I've truly lost count. Evan was a candidate for transplant, and I was the first to be tested. When I think of organ donors, the first thing that I think of is a hero. Yet it's the last thing that I considered myself then to be. I still remember the look on Dr. Campos' face. It was official that I was a match, and it was as if he had known in his heart all along. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, a daughter, and a friend. Now I'm a hero. And out of the depths of our initial sorrows through this journey came courage and faith for what truly lied ahead in Evan's life. So 5 short months of dialysis, and in May, only a week away from Mother's Day, Evan and I spent the night in Tampa General, knowing that on May 22nd, better days lied ahead. It was hard to describe transplant itself from this point on, and I think that's because Evan's story then became mine. I was that missing piece that we were told about. I was the bridge that linked us to transplant. And although our transplant was truly a textbook version, I know that in my heart it was so much more than that. Several media outlets actually covered our story, and we were encouraged to share awareness about organ donation. Overall, it was that true feel-good story about a mom who gave her son the gift of life twice. Later in the year that I had donated my kidney, I actually became the co-chair for the National Kidney Foundation's Tampa Bay Walk. We raised over $60,000 for local patients in our community, many of them patients here at Tampa General. My desire to shout awareness from the rooftops doesn't just benefit Evan. I volunteered with NKF, with LifeLink, and at the hospital on the Family Advisory Council. Our family began to also work with the Children's Organ Transplant Association in 2012, and we raised over $60,000 alone just to cover Evan's medical expenses through that first year of transplant. We held such events as a golf tournament and a mud run that had over 1,200 people. I've had a handful of people actually admit to me that after speaking, like tonight, at those events, that they've decided to become organ donors because of hearing Evan's bravery. Most recently, USF Health actually featured our story on their annual report alongside of our pediatric nephrologist, Dr. Campos. Dr. Campos, without your guidance, we would have walked blindly through those 4 years. I'd like to take a moment to recognize him. With his influence and the foundation of this hospital, we were given a journey at Tampa General that I can promise you more than anything, I would not be the mother that I am today. The grass is not always greener on the other side, but let me assure you that our family lives life to the fullest. Evan loves the beach and to go to Disney. He loves dinosaurs, trains, cars. And while transplant is not a cure, we've traded one set of worries for another. His story doesn't end here, it only begins. I know that someday Evan will ask me, why me?
I'm making a train track.
He'll have more detailed questions of the scars that covers his body. But for now, they're a part of him, just like his arm or his leg. After all, scars are just proof that you've won a battle. And I know that as a parent, I carry the burden of his future on my shoulders. But it's to be expected that someday, when he's an adult, he'll have the same fears that I do, of rejection, of side effects from his medications, from medical expenses, and the overall distraction of life when you hit a bump in the road. We've come a long way, and my family is very strong now. We've learned to accept kidney disease, because someday it will haunt us again, having a child with a chronic illness does not go away. However, God uses our deepest pain as a launching pad for our greatest calling. And I know that someday it will lead Evan and I into helping others understand what we've been taught by this experience at Tampa General all along. To see the sunshine where shadows are cast. I've smiled through many tears. And although some of my best moments were truly at Tampa General, moments where miracles happened and weights were lifted from my shoulder. And one of those days was the best day, when my son was born at Tampa General, and we were given hope.